So, welcome to another episode of Decoding India's Social Sector, a podcast where we bring conversation with the people building solutions to India's biggest development challenges. When we talk about improving education, we often discuss policies, infrastructure, teachers, or curriculum. But what if one of the biggest challenges is something much simpler? So, how do you make children actually enjoy learning? How do we ensure every child reaches grade level learning? How can technology becomes equalizer rather than another divide? So today's guest has spent more than a decade working on exactly these questions. After successful leadership role at Sulav International, Nanyang Technological University, and the private sector, he chooses a very different path, living corporate life to establish the Indeed Foundation, working to improve education in government schools through volunteerism, digital learning, critical thinking, and youth empowerment. He is also a TEDx speaker, as you can see the logo behind, youth mentor, strong advocate of quality education. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Vikram Rajola.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Preetham. Uh,
You had a stable career and leadership positions. What happened internally that made you leave everything and start an NGO?
I would say it was not sudden. I believe it started even before I was born.
Hmm.
In a sense, growing up, the first thing that I understood is I was privileged because of the accident of birth. My dad was a class one government officer before I was born, and that kind of changed at least my and my siblings' life and lifestyle. We come from a small village like Vikram Rajola. Rajola is the name of my village. It's a small village in Pali district, Sojat block, Sojat Tehsil जिसे बोलते हैं, in Rajasthan, and it's like equidistant from the nearest big cities. So the block headquarter, Sojat itself, Pali, the district headquarters, and Jodhpur, the division headquarters. All three are around 40-50 kilometers. So it was a remote outpost in the 60s, 70s, just after independence. Like nobody even left the village. Very few people, the sarpanch or somebody would once in a while, once in a blue moon, travel to the city. Education was, of course, pretty rudimentary, but things were starting, things were looking up. And when my father tells me the story, he was bright. He was My grandfather was a sarpanch, so he understood the importance of education. Independent India slowly started at the primary and slowly at that. So father was lucky also in that sense, but he was himself very bright. He became a class one government officer at the young age of 21. And when we were born, we were the kids of an officer, despite coming from a rural farmer, farming led family and background. And my dad ensured, once he was in the army, of course you understand that, so you rub shoulders with the best. In the 70s, the army was some of the best background, best education, city bred children, all English speaking, middle class, upper middle class. So when you rub shoulders with them, you do realize that education is very important. You spend a huge portion of your life and income towards getting your kids the best education. So I went to some of the best public schools of the country, as did my siblings. But when we used to go to the village for holidays, we could see the stark difference between just how privileged we were. Just speaking English also, kids used to teach us, elder cousins also, like just say a few sentences in English. That time, if you remember, grade 6 में introduce होता था government schools में, rural areas में English introduce ही grade 6 में होता था, unlike today where at least it's introduced in one. They cannot speak that well, but it's introduced along with other subjects in grade 1. So getting that education and seeing that difference, that just because one small thing, quality education, helped me do my engineering, then work for some of the best organizations, do a good job, fly Singapore Airlines, have so many miles that me and my wife used to travel, like सिर्फ tax pay करने पड़ता था. But you do realize that it's I have nothing special. There's nothing special about me except for the opportunities that I got. And that is why throughout life, this was, if not exactly a mission, at the back of the mind, there was always this thing that we should do something for those less privileged than ourselves. And the best means, every sector is important. We understand there is health, environment, infrastructure, all sorts of things are very important. Nothing to take away from those sectors, but I believe education is one of the most important, and that is what this organization was started for. we had this dream growing up. In college, we tried to do things, it did not work out later on. And luckily, I was always, despite being an engineer, I did my master's in environment engineering after bachelor's in civil engineering. I was always in the development sector, because around the time I was doing my master's, 9/11 happened. There were no placements those days. And then, as luck would have it, I joined Sulam International, the largest NGO in the world, probably one of the largest in the world. And through since then, I've always been in the development sector, working in water, sanitation, hygiene, health, training of trainers, structural strengthening, all related fields. But 2014, then I quit my full-time job. I gave up my Singapore PR, and then I thought it's high time I start an organization dedicated towards education itself, and education for government school children and rural kids of India. So that is the journey. There was no single point as such, but it was always there at the back of the mind. That's it.
So, out of all other domains, why you have chosen education particularly? Is there any reason behind it?
Like I said, uh, I believe I could understand. One of my cousins is my own age. He was in my grade. Throughout schooling, he was in the same grade, my real chacha's son. He was always brighter than me. He got better ranks. Um, he could understand things. When we used to play a quiz, like my father or my grandfather, once in a while, they would just, he knew the answers. Despite my studying in public school, he was more aware in that sense also. But sadly, schools at that time in the village were only till grade 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th had to be done from other places. By that time, if the parents and all are not involved, you sometimes tend to slip, because that's a growing age if you don't have the right mentorship. So he did study and do his bachelor's and master's, but that was from the local university. He did 12th. Then later on, his kids are also studying in the village. Now they've completed their studies, but he somehow could not get those opportunities, and this was very, very visible to me. And at that age, I myself was growing, did not have a proper job, so nothing much that I could directly do. But internally, I promised that at least the next generation, as far as possible, whatever we can do. So education was the only differentiator, quality education. Otherwise, brains wise, exposure wise, people have like potential wise, I believe those kids are as bright, if not brighter, than those kids studying in the public schools. They're called public schools, but basically private schools of the country. And as of now, when we started around 27 crore, now around 24 or 25 odd crore people are in schooling in India. And that's a huge, huge number. Never before, never after has such a number been in schooling in any country. That's almost like the population of Indonesia, which is probably amongst the top five most populated countries of the world, largest populations. And that number we have in school, half of that, approximately just short of half, go to government and rural schools. And the other
Mhm.
half now is slightly higher number than that, is now in private schools, what we call, whether affordable private schools or the premium schools. So the kids in government schools and rural India at this age and stage, they require phenomenal amount of support. Why do they require it? Is when we were students, like till the 80s and 90s, a majority of school going children were enrolled in government schools. Private schools were few and far between, and the enrollment was not as high. And that means even those from the middle classes, those who were educated, those who had started working, those who were one generation educated, their kids to a great extent were going to government schools, which is why the standards, the concern, the policy handling of things in government schools was slightly better till the 80s and 90s. But last 2.5, 3 decades, slowly now it is only the socially and economically the most deprived sections, which means now they need even more support to come out of that cycle of let's not say poverty, because I believe now hopefully India is leaving behind poverty, but that access to opportunities and the ability to grow and help the country grow and reach the goal of Viksit Bharat. That
Mhm.
with that in mind, we believe that education, particularly for those 50% of kids who are in government and rural India, is very, very important. And if I may add, education is not just, we're not just talking about subjects and basically curricular learning. I'll tell a personal story, something that impacted me a lot while I was growing up. We lost my grandfather. He was a sarpanch and a very big personality in the village and respected across villages in the entire diameter of 100 odd kilometers. People knew him. And we were recognized by him more than my father, although my father was an officer and he was pretty popular. But my grandfather was a legend of his in his own right. We lost him in 2005. And why I remember this is before he passed away, community festivals like Holi were banned by village elders themselves, including one of the decision makers was my grandfather himself. So while growing up in the 80s, 90s, when I remember, there used to be fun festival, people would celebrate together and people would come together. And there was very little scope for fighting. Yeah, people still had that respect and all. But over time, that was somehow lost. And people started like there was you would abuse and like
Hmm.
things
Yeah.
started slipping, and because of that they had to stop a beautiful festival which the community, so everybody can play on their own, but like the holy chung would people would
Hmm.
go to village and then ultimately they'd go to the senior most people and all those playing together was slowly taken away. That no, please stop doing this. People would get drunk and they would make a mess, and there would fights would erupt. That also is partly something which we believe education will help. It's not just curricular learning or for a job. What we believe is social strife to a great extent can be reduced by education. It doesn't 100% cover that, because you'll find a lack of social graces even amongst some of the most educated. International airport pe line tod rahe hain public Indians, to jo kar rahe hain, that's, but at least it helps. That would be the first step. For example, in Delhi, people are not honking massively at red lights because they know everybody stopped. But you
Hmm.
leave the premises, the boundaries of Delhi, you reach Noida, you reach Gurgaon, and slowly you can see. You go to smaller towns and cities just outside Delhi, you will find a huge difference in driving sense also. So somehow education, exposure, connectedness, that does bring a lot of social awareness and improved social graces. So overall, it's when we talk about education or when we wanted to do something in education, it's not just, it is definitely curricular learning. That's important. That's a core part of that. But it's much beyond that. It's not just livelihoods that we want to improve. It is the overall, why should one be educated? That so
Hmm.
education for education's sake, learning for learning's sake, not just for a
Simply
job
for
or
the
for a
holistic development of the person. Yeah.
exactly. So that is what we want to, and we actually do think that we focus on. So this was one of the reasons why we work in education.
So everyone says we need quality education, but quality means different things, right? So according to you, what actually defines quality education?
Okay, quality education, one is basically curricular learning that has to happen. When that happens, it gives confidence to the kids themselves that yes, this is something which my parents haven't read. Very
Right.
many people in India in the last 2 or 3 generations, when we became independent, we were like less than 10%, or exact statistics we can check up. uh, in there's a lot of data available, but very few of us were actually educated by that uh, around that time. In the last 2 or 3 generations, most of us, so like now the literacy rate is much higher. Even the education rate, people who complete school level and basic graduation or post graduation, the numbers have increased phenomenally despite the huge rise in population. So quality education is understanding those curricular things which maybe the parents did not understand one
Hmm.
generation back, or this current generation of students for government school. The people who we work with, most of their parents are generally those who have dropped out of school. Even if they went to school in the 80s or 90s, they have dropped out of school. So the kids now understanding the curriculum without fear and being able to score, that is quality education. But much beyond that is digital skills like basic computers. The world is going 21st century. Everybody understands that there's AI and all those things. That has to be, even if one is not on top of that, everybody won't become a coder. Obviously, that's true
Right.
for all classes of people going to some of the best schools also. Not everybody will become a software engineer or a coder, but basic understanding, basic knowledge of that, and what we call holistic personality development, like being slightly well read, understanding what other countries do, having a bit of grasp of critical thinking, being critical of your own thinking, getting outside of, like in India, one of the reasons why skill development doesn't do very well is that people cannot adjust and adapt outside their own familiar surroundings. So somebody from Rajasthan, let's say, will find it very, very difficult to go and settle in East India or South India, because the food is different, the language is different, the people are different. Unless there is a community of those people itself, then they can still go and survive there. Otherwise, leaving their origin, everybody after retirement, they'll come and settle back in their home. Even our civil servants, IASs also want the home state as the first priority. So we are not exactly comfortable coming out of that. So that is where education comes in, and that's very important. Besides, of course, social graces. If we can be good, nice, kind, warm, and happier, that that would also be a core part of education. Be concerned for others. That's part of education. Having pride in our heritage and history and culture, that is education. So all that combined probably means quality education. That's
Right.
what we believe.
So if you had to rank, let's say, top three challenges that you see in the government school, as you are working, I think, more than 200 government schools, right? So what would they be? Like, what would be the major three challenges that you have identified so far?
The first and the most important is most of the kids who are now going, like we said, they are socially and economically, like a huge number of them come basically for the midday meal itself.
Hmm.
So that, although it's a very good scheme by the government of India, at least getting kids to school, that's a huge first step. And that's important. That's how last 20 years the enrollment numbers have reached 95, 97, almost universal enrollment has been achieved. So that is very, very important. But then the biggest challenge is we are not able to convert that interest up to grade 8 to the belief that yes, if I study well, if I do well, I will actually be able to make something in life through this education. So there's a mismatch between what job roles they go for and what they are learning in school. And because of that lack of belief that this is not helping, this is not what I will be meant to be, there's very little interest of kids to learn. So that's one of the biggest, that's the biggest challenge, that mismatch between what most of them will go on and do. Because if somebody will become a laborer, there's not much interest in actually going through physics, chemistry, maths, bio, that's or language or literature, anything. So that does not help. So
Hmm.
they know that very few of them. And from that system comes the mad race for government schools job, a government job, sorry, not government schools. uh, every one of us is aware, like one job, PhD for jobs of PN or office
Yeah.
boys, PhD holders are applying across the country, most parts of the country. So this lack of faith in the private sector to provide decent, sustainable jobs, particularly among, so the first generation, whosoever has not gone into the government sector, their first priority is to crack a government job, which is why thousands and thousands of them are going to coaching institutes and spending years and years. And that's the challenge that India right now faces. We do read constant news reports which say that the percentage of unemployment amongst graduates is higher than those who have not completed schooling. And that stems directly from the fact that hundreds of thousands of millions of them are spending 3, 4, 5 years preparing for government jobs, which of course only 1 in 1,000 or whatever is the ratio they will secure. So the rest of them are unemployed till that age, and then they cannot even do physical labor. Everybody expects a white collar job. They deem it below their dignity, and the caste system is of course a bane which kind of makes it difficult to overcome that feeling. So that is the second challenge. And third is the administration, like schools. Sometimes before starting, I too believe that the system itself is not helping, but once we work with schools, I believe school teachers, the administration departments, they're some of the most sincere people. But sadly they are, like, school as a premise is the premises of schools in India are used for every single thing, whether there are competitive exams to be held or engineering, medical seat, anything that, so that day, particularly government schools. So government schools children will have holiday on those dates whenever there are exam schedule or elections or anything. So those premises are used for every other thing besides education. First. Second, government school teachers are more responsible for arranging the midday meal, for SIR duties, for election and census now, and every other um, possible due during COVID. They will create a list of whosoever is suffering, and they'll go door to door. And so they have a lot of administrative and other duties besides. Elections come, and everywhere from panchayat to state level to central level, it's the government school teachers who form this huge bulk of educated army for the government to put them wherever the task requires. And that means that the students are not studying during that time, and the school is also not accessible to them. So these three challenges. So because of that, even kids like they lose interest. That look, the system is not exactly very concerned. And sadly, the parents, their own coming from backgrounds where earning a daily livelihood is more important than. So very many parents, we go and see, we ask them, okay, which class is the child studying in? Oh, son, which class are you? I mean, if they do not even know which class, then of course they're not concerned. Whereas in middle class, upper middle class families, those who are sending their kids to public schools, we understand not just which Monday test do they have, how many did they score last year, how much do they. So that's all. The level of involvement and concern, and the fact that we are able to afford that, afford financially and afford by time and interest,
Mhm.
is a huge difference. So that's another challenge which we should overcome as a nation if we are to achieve the goal of Viksit Bharat. These, I believe, are some of the biggest challenges.
I remember visiting a village, and there was one child who was talking to a bureaucrat. He, the bureaucrat told him, "Why are you not going to school?" He said, "I am going, sir, but definitely it has now become harder for our family." He said, "My mother earns only 3,000 rupees. I have two elder sisters, and we three are all into education." So then the bureaucrat said, "But the education is free for you." He said, "Yes, it is free. I am getting the books, I'm getting the notebook, I am getting the education free of cost. But up to nine. What after nine? Because it's very hard for the family to, bear the expenses of my education along with taking care of my other two sisters. And then there are lot of other expenses apart from the education that my family needs to pay for. So
Absolutely.
that's where it gets difficult. Like if I see the education system of Singapore or UK, no, however, like you wanted to study, you will be provided support from the government in different levels.
Absolutely.
But in India, we say that the education is free, the government schools are free. But even though, like, once you start going up into the higher standard, it becomes very challenging for you. Up to 10th grade, I believe it's very good system that we have in place in India. But after 10, there's not much mentorship guidance provided to the students, and they end up discontinuing their education and moving into something other to take up their job and provide support to their families. That is the main concern in today's time that I see. What are your thoughts about national education policies? Do you see it a ray of hope which will change a kind of education system which we have in our country?
Look, a lot of much smarter and much more experienced people in the field have spoken a lot of things about it. So hardly my place, and let me be honest, I'm not exactly an expert on that subject. But it's a wonderful document. It did require like India did require, because the previous education policy was sometime in the mid 80s, and it had been 30 plus years. So we were in need of a policy. So this one in place, and it does cover a lot of important ground in things from skill development to critical thinking to bringing kids up to date regarding 21st century, the requirements of the marketplace. So those are some beautiful things that have been brought in the education policy. By policy, any policy in India is generally good. Sadly, what you think, and that's not even a government challenge. Let me be honest, it's not. Once we start working in the field, we realize how utterly difficult what you say in one class. I'll give you an example. Let's say we put to help students academically, we have this program called Adhyayan, and we try to set up smart TVs, so a smart room with smart TV and digital content from some of the top edtech companies of India. Now, it should help. Ideally, every school, it should be easy to have the important grades, learn science and maths, and maybe English subjects which students find difficult, where teachers are not available, and students should be able to learn. But the challenge comes from, let's say, schools do not have an extra room. These are things that we do not beforehand, we do not understand, we do not know. So what we learned is we go and put it up in the largest room in a school, right? Or where the school agrees. Now that room may be for in 1 year for, let's say, grade 3 or grade 9 or grade 11 or grade 5, the grade in which the highest number of students is there. So that will be assigned to that grade. Now, every time, because neither the government nor any organization, NGO like us has that kind of funds, like private schools, you have a smart TV or a panel in every room. That cannot be provided in government schools. So basically, there'll be one TV, and we hope that kids will keep shifting in that room. It's assigned to some grade. Getting those kids out, getting other kids to move in every single period it just doesn't, it's not physically possible. They do not have that kind of interest. Then getting kids to come to that room, start studying. So if they do not have furniture, it's difficult. If they do have furniture, then again, it is, because if it's for smaller grades, then senior kids cannot come and sit there, take out the furniture, the senior kids sitting there. So so just providing the TV. So although as a system, even we believed, so as a system, yes, it should help very much, but it's not used as much as we expect practically when we found out, because there's only one room, and that room is assigned to some grade, because they do not have an additional room which we can call a smart room. So first somebody constructs the room. Of course, that's not part of our mandate. So then we do not do it. So when the government also comes up with certain policies, the actual situation on the ground is such that as policies, we do come up with some phenomenal documents which are in keeping with the times, and same is true for the NEP. It's a wonderful document, but to be able to make it work will require a lot of effort, not just financially. I mean, across a lot of domains. So,
Let's talk about the programs that Indeed runs. So uh, it could be Adhyayan, e-Kaushal, Sambhavna, Sansadhan, sorry. So if you could talk about few programs and what are you trying to solve through these programs?
okay. We broadly divide education into three pillars, basically. The first being curricular studies. It's very important. If you are coming to school, yes, everything is there, but basically you come to school to learn English, Hindi, math, science, physics, chemistry, like the curricular learning, which cannot be provided at home. So when we say schooling, it's basically academics, and academics is a huge pillar of learning. When we started in 2014 from the state of Rajasthan, and from areas where gender ratio, which means the ratio of girls compared to boys in school, was pretty adverse. So in Western Rajasthan, the region where we do a lot of programs and projects, we realized that the pass percentage that year in 2014 in the Rajasthan board grade 10 examinations was only 70%, which means 1 in 3 kids was failing grade 10 examination. That is when they have 20 marks internal assessment, only 80 marks. So basically, you just need to get around 15 to 20 marks out of that 80, and you are at least cleared. You pass to the next grade. So 1 in 3 kids was failing to do that too. So academics, we realized, was very important, and that was a time when there was no internet connection, or like edtech was not that well developed. So we used to bring volunteers, mostly from Hindi medium schools, and those who had completed their schooling and through competitive exams gone to engineering, medical, law, or whatever studies. Those undergraduate students, we used to bring them, and they used to take classes till 2017-18. This worked. Then 3G developed, and then COVID came. And after COVID, of course, the content problem was solved. We partnered with some of the biggest names in the edtech sector, and their curriculum content was available to us. So one to one and one to many. So one to one is app based at home, where a child can do at leisure whatever time suits them, and one to many is the preferred mode for us, because most people do not have internet access and a device at home. So one to many is in class, where we can, if we can set up an edtech content and kids can learn through that. So that was the preferred method that we used. So in Adhyayan, program that we do. Curricular studies is a core part that we want kids to understand and perform well in exams, because that gives a lot of confidence. That's the purpose of coming to school. Within
Mhm.
Adhyayan, of course, we do a lot of other interventions. Some of them are STEM support. So like there is a startup of some very smart engineers. They developed VR based, because most even private schools do not have well developed laboratories which can help you do all the experiments in your books from grade 6 to 10, so science experiments. So they have these VR based, where you feel like you're actually picking up a thing and then setting it on the burner and getting dropping whatever solution on a leaf and then seeing that chlorophyll. So that's a beautiful way to um, help
English.
students who do not have a physical laboratory. So we have these VR boxes which our team takes to school. So this science STEM learning, science experiment learning through VR boxes. There's another startup by IITians which makes math learning easy through practical methods. This was developed by IIT Jodhpur and their alumni who went to IIT Jodhpur. We partnered with them, and that so EduM easy. They're like making math easy. We try to do that through practical learning. Of they have those kits and boards where kids learn practically mathematics. So we try to do that also. We encourage a lot of competitive participation. So participation is Manak Inspire Awards, which is Department of Science and Technology under the Ministry of Science and Technology. So annually, a decent number of our students mentored by Indeed Foundation from government schools, they do win that scholarship in 10,000 rupees, certificate and all. Then we encourage a lot of state level participation. So school level science fair. Next is block level. Those who do well, they go to the district level, and from there state level and national level. So a few kids have reached national level also, so by winning the gold medal at the state level. So we encourage a lot of science fair participation. So academically, we do a lot of things where kids understand, learn. There's edtech content. There's one-on-one learning, smart rooms in school, practical learning methods using latest technology like VR, and anything that helps kids to
And you
be
are
on
doing
top of
it
the
on government
subject.
schools across Rajasthan, right?
Yeah, we are now active in 10 districts and 200 plus government schools. The mandate is 200. This year, God willing, we should do a much larger number in that. And through that, we reach at least around 10,000 students every academic session. So that's broadly the target. And we focus on Niti Aayog identified aspirational districts and aspirational blocks specifically. So that's where the maximum need is, as identified by the Niti Aayog and as seen from the actual socioeconomic indicators on the ground. So that also is a focus for us. So these are programs we cover under Adhyayan, like you mentioned, so academics. Then next pillar we believe in education is digital skills. It's a time of AI. Everybody knows that's the buzzword. Whichever sector you go to, newspapers are filled of that. So kids need to know at least basic computers, a bit of MS Office, just how to use a map, book tickets, pay their utility bills. Like any digital skills is very very important. So we cover under e-kaushal, basic as well as slightly more in-depth coding, robotics and AI programs, which gives a lot of confidence to students. And under this also they participate in let's say international computer science olympiads, and a lot of our students do well at various levels, so like regional levels and all. So that's something that we do. We call it the e-kaushal program, under which digital skills are covered. And the third pillar of education, we understand that learning is not just confined to the classroom. Yes, academics is important. That's one of the major pillars. Yes, digital skills, 21st century. This is all very important. But like we discussed in the beginning, just being a good human being, being able to understand why I think what I think is also very important, because without that there's nothing, there's no improvement, there's no change, there's no acceptance of change, and without change there's no progress. So learning outside the classroom, we cover under the initiative called Sambhavna. Under this comes a lot of co-curricular activities, student exchange, peer learning, interaction with volunteers, career counseling. Uh, One very interesting thing we do under this is called Tabar Mela. Now, Tabar in Western Rajasthan, in Rajasthani, Tabar means child. So this
Okay.
is an edutainment fair where because government and rural schools do not have something like a carnival or an annual day in which there's a lot of inter and intra school competition, so they do not have concept of houses, which all private schools have, a prefect or head boy, or basic elections and those amongst the students, or inter school competitions. There's no co-curricular activities, as so to say. At most what they have is a bit of games and sports, and those are state specific. For example, Rajasthan, there's a lot of kabaddi and kho kho or volleyball, but there's very little basketball or any other sport. They generally would not have it developed to that level, or athletics, so to say. So what we try to do is, we or co-curricular activities are absolutely missing. So like debate and spell bee and quiz and general knowledge, none of those happens at a significant level in schools. So we introduce that intra schools, and then some of those winners come and they participate at the end in the Tabar Mela, and the winners are of course given certificates and some sort of encouragement, so that it continues next year. So this Tabar Mela is organized at a district level, where several schools, but only government schools, participate. And we bring in a lot of volunteers, and those volunteers are from private schools or higher education institutions like IITs and NIFT and NLU, AIMS, and all sorts of local engineering, medical, legal, whatever the best higher education institutions that work in India at the local, state, or national levels. We bring them, they put up stalls, they interact with kids, they help us organize and coordinate this. We have a lot of volunteers working with Indeed. So one of the planks for us is also to improve, to encourage youth volunteerism, improve participation of
Yeah.
youth in this kind of activities. So they help us organize a lot of, for example, NIFT kids can help drawing and painting, and some school will help with doodling, and so kids can observe, learn, participate, and in a fun environment. So it's all free and easy, and they look forward towards these kind of participation. There's science exhibitions, and there's robotics and STEM, and there's a lot of competitions, and there's this feeling of camaraderie which generally doesn't exist in schools. Okay, my school is winning, and that we try to bring that. So all that comes under exposure, and that's what makes a lot of kids believe in the idea of schooling and education as such, and then they want to come to school. They look forward to the Tabar Mela. So that's very, very interesting, and I believe successful initiative that we have implemented across districts, and we hope to expand that each year. So that's things that we cover under Sambhavna program. The last, these are three programmatic interventions: Adhyayan, E-Kaushal, and Sambhavna. There's another called Sansadhan, like you mentioned, but
Yeah.
that is broadly donor dependent. Yes, these interventions can work successfully only if they have basic infrastructure. There's water and electricity and toilets for girls and all. So these are not programmatic interventions, but a lot of donors, particularly PSUs, have a lot of focus on helping schools, particularly government schools, have good infrastructure at schools, and that is what we cover under. So setting up smart rooms or TVs, digital content. So the hardware basically which can support the program intervention in schools. So that is also, we have implemented solar electricity at schools, girls toilets, rainwater harvesting stations, and hand washing stations, where kids can, like, before and after their midday meals, they can wash hands, so that at least there's good hygiene and health in schools, and so on and so forth. So that is also something that we do. These are broadly the four interventions that we cover in education.
Right, right. There's so much going on and a lot of interesting thing actually. Uh, I wanted to ask you, sir, if someone who is very new, seen your work or the organizational work, and wanted to replicate the same model in areas like the eastern areas, let's say Chhattisgarh, Bihar, Jharkhand, uh, what would be your recommendation or your suggestion to them if they wanted to do something similar in those sort of PVTG areas?
That's a very interesting question. In fact, it's not the first time. This has happened earlier. Like
Okay.
we mentioned, we have volunteers from some of the best higher education institutions and the best private schools in Rajasthan right now. But those institutions are all India institutions, so like IITs and AIMS and NLU and NIFT and all. So their kids, particularly during COVID, we had these instances. You mentioned Jharkhand. So Bihar, say there were some students who went back to their village. One of their parents, one of the kids, their father was in a government school system. So when she went, she did conduct classes during COVID, because कॉलेज तो था नहीं, उनका भी नहीं था और बच्चों का स्कूल भी नहीं था. So they, when they went back to their village, they were teaching kids in their own village. The same thing happened in Rajasthan. One of our former volunteers from RTU Kota, Rajasthan Technical University Kota, by that time she had graduated and gotten a job. She was a PO undergoing training in State Bank of India. And then she engaged. So although she was working, she was not back in her village, but through her we engaged two girl students who had completed grade 12 in her own village near Jaipur. So that time Jaipur was not part of the district that not among the districts that we were covering at that time in 2021. But then they taught a group of upper primary grade children, because schools were almost closed for that 1.5 2 years when COVID in 2020 and 21. So they taught a lot of students. So this kind of initiatives have happened. We encourage volunteers. Like just this year, another interesting incident, uh, law college in Jodhpur, one of their students went back to her own village in western Rajasthan itself and taught grade 10th students. So we had encouraged them. We had done this volunteering session, and we encouraged them to start doing this in their own villages. So she went back, she spoke to the principal, and so although they had 100% pass percentage, the first division percentage till last year was low. So this year that the number of students getting first division in grade 10 improved by 20% because of her process. She conducted around for 1 month, so around 25 to 30 hours of training, but only for grade 10 in science and maths. So this we have been doing. We would love to. One of the planks that indeed works on is like when we were in college or senior school, we wanted to do something for education of children less privileged than ourselves, but there was no clear cut idea what to do, how to do, where we can go and get things done. In college, we remember, so any senior who we took guidance from, whether it's a faculty or a senior student, they would say, okay, there are these on the chai tapri outside, the thadi outside, there are these small kids who work, so you can just go and train them. So when we went to the owner did not like that. The kid, we didn't know which class they are in. They would change in 3 months. So it was not sustainable. It did not engage us also fully, and it never happened. So, but what we did realize is there are these thousands or lakhs of kids, youth in senior schooling and higher education in India who would love to volunteer their time and skills. And there are these millions of kids in rural India and in government school system who do require a lot of one-on-one or one-to-many mentorship, who would help through guidance and interaction with these volunteers. So Indeed is basically a platform which we are trying to bring these two together, so that and it works in wonderful ways. So volunteerism is something which we believe should become like a movement in India, because nowadays you see all kids are single child families. There are a lot of them, a lot of loneliness and depression rising amongst the youth. And because once the parents are aged or no more, then very many people will be just themselves. There's no concept of extended family. There are no siblings to a great extent, and you are across different parts of the country. So there's very little individual there to bond with the community. If you start in your youth itself, so you become part of another family. It's not sibling, or it's not blood relations, but that is very important, not just as a sense of giving back, but for your own mental health and peace and growth. So
Yeah.
that is what we try to do a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but what about the institutional or the organizational partnership? Let's say someone wanted guidance from your organization, wanted to replicate this model to what I said in different parts of the country. Then is it something your team can guide them towards? Setting it up initially and helping them out with sort of few technologies that you extensively use in your work.
Absolutely, I believe we would be very open to do that.
Hmm.
um, we are expanding ourselves to states. We've already, in partnership with the big PSU, expanded to Gujarat this year, and fingers crossed to Maharashtra and Delhi NCR also. We are hoping that that does happen. So, but across the country, we are okay to partner with anybody, and there's very little copyright kind of thing in this. These are basically models which can be done. So people are free to come visit us, visit the schools where we are working, and understand most of the technologies in any case are from other organizations. For example, the
Right.
VR box is a startup, edtech startup. The content and the TV in any case are some branded TVs that we've set up, which makes the smart room. But the edtech content is some of the biggest names, so Physics Wala or Baiju or iDream or Classroom. So that is available to everybody. Um it's, how we do it is I believe most NGOs have a decent idea wherever they are locally based. They have a decent idea, maybe better than us, of how to work in there, how to partner with the government school system, and what exactly is it required from the community's end to be in there. Now, the depth and intensity will vary. So maybe they do not require that much content as they would require grade level learning. So that would of course be depending on local situations. But we are more than happy to collaborate. There's nothing which is copyrighted in this. We would love to visit and help at different locations itself, because partnership and coordination is the way to go for non-profits to sustain, survive, and flourish. So no challenges there. We'll be very happy to.
Yeah, just for the people who are working in the ed tech or in education domain, how difficult is fundraising, and what's the challenge in today's time? If some organizational representative or leaders who are watching this wanted to get an idea about the entire sector, how difficult it is to get into those funders and philanthropies.
Look, I won't. Let's be very clear. Startup any field. So tech startups which are funded, and there's a lot of ecosystem around that, and it seems that there. But no startup is, and I believe even the non-profit world is something like startup. You start out on your own, and then you raise resources and kind of do projects. The only challenge that non-profits face, whether trust or society or a Section 8 company, is like most things are from 1st April to 31st March. And then next financial year, again, you go with the with the bowl and you start raising fresh fundraising for that year. You spend 85%, and then again, because that is the biggest challenge. But coming to once good things start happening, there's a lot of traction. Like personally, COVID was a very challenging situation for most organizations, for Indeed also. For me personally, there were sleepless nights that what exactly will we do next month, next year, and so on. And if the situation continues, because not just funding, schools themselves were closed. So what exactly to implement? What do you promise the donor that yes, I will do this, but do what? Because if kids are not in school, what exactly, how much can you do? And they do not have devices. It's very difficult to reach them and access. There are no mobile numbers. So what? And those are times when when new technology, like we partnered with Byju's. Right now their name may not be, they're facing a lot of challenges across, but they were the biggest unicorn non-profit for profit in the education sector. They were huge that time, and everybody, we partnered with them, and that was just through in response to an advertisement in the daily like newspapers. And we were one of the 100 odd partners who were selected out of that process for their Education for All initiative, under which they, like Byju's had the plan of reaching 1 crore students, and we were partnering for 1 lakh out of that 1 CR number of students. And their content, which was very costly at that time also, was provided for free of cost for the government schools children that we
Right.
were working with. Then some donors came out of the blue. We did not know them. We had no idea. People were there to provide masks and meals and funds for education and new technologies, new ideas to implement. So we implemented boosters to put up internet connection, intranet connections in villages, and then do a bit of assessments and all. Even if kids are not coming to school, they can sit at different spaces, but still they have access. We partnered with learning content development organizations who would conduct classes for free, who would share their content. We met a lot of volunteers, and we prepared the course for grade 6 to 8 audio textbooks, not video, because video was very large size, and people in villages did not have that level of daily quota to watch that level of heavy files, download that and watch that. So audio files we developed for a lot of grades for important subjects. So a number of, and they come out of the, like, if you're doing good work, people keep joining you. You get support from unknown, unheard, unexpected quarters and
Mhm.
things. So, but no, nothing to take away from the challenges. Yes, there are a number of challenges. It's nobody can say that it's easy, but good work does bring its own satisfaction, and you do get a lot of support. Like pura kainat आपका सहायता
Sa-
करता है, जी साथ
got
देता है,
it.
इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं। हाँ।
Yeah. Um, right. So, what were some of the challenges for you, sir? Like, was there any moment when you decided to quit?
Like I said, COVID was one,
Mhm.
and the first 3 years are always a challenge because you do not have support. That is the time when you depend most on friends and family. And I was really, really lucky to have phenomenal support from my immediate family, my parents, my better half. So like my son is younger than the organization, so he was born after the organization was set up and we were working. The day he was born, I was not even in town, like I was away. But the wife has always been hugely supportive. My parents, they've uh, given their time, effort, money, huge support. My siblings, sister and brother and their families and all. It's plus, very importantly, my friends from school and college and previous workplaces. They've, from direct donations to spending time with us. So but there were challenges. The first 3 years are always a challenge. Like beyond that, you cannot keep going to the same people time and again, and you do need a stage where it becomes professional, where it becomes moves beyond the immediate family, beyond the immediate circle. So that is always a challenging time. And now it's been almost 8 9 years, so I I cannot remember the feeling. I do have a faint idea, but that was the most difficult, challenging time. Another phase is when we find something very odd in the system. For example, there was this meeting we had with a very senior bureaucrat, and what he said left us, although that was a huge lesson and we did learn from that also, but that did leave me dumbfounded. He said, why do you want to do this? And we were like, so that we are able to give opportunity to very many kids. He said, what, will everybody go to IIT? Will they all be successful? What do you believe? And I was stunned. I didn't have an answer. We know everybody will not go to IIT, but that we know for our own kid also.
Right.
I mean, no, nobody is sure that they, howsoever bright, and it's
Uh-huh.
may or may not be bright, all kids. So then but we still provide them the best of opportunities. So those are times when you start questioning. And in India, sadly, not for profits, not uh, seen in a very good light. That's a very sad reflection of the times, and maybe a lot of non-profits, because every politician is a social worker. Every every senior bureaucrat or their spouse is a social worker, so to say. That's the term that they use, which means
Okay.
there's a lot of, so people do not believe these organizations. So the first few years to convince people that yes, we are in it for the long haul, even immediate family, and particularly the partners, like in government schools, you, okay, why do you do this? And the first question they had is, you go to villages, you go to schools, you talk to teachers, and they believe there's something in it for you. Over time, when they realize, okay, it's been years and they're still doing the same thing and there's nothing directly benefit that is going to them. So the bent of mind of people in India, most of us, that is very saddening at times. Other than
Okay.
that, daily challenges तो आते रहते हैं, उसको आप पार करते हो, निकलते हो. That's how.
So, picking up a keyword from whatever you said from your response just now. So, I don't want it to make you uncomfortable. I'm a bit curious, and that's why I wanted to ask you this one, because you must have seen a lot of protests going on in Jantar Mantar today's time. Uh, if I wanted to put you in someone else's shoes right now, so if you become a education minister for 1 year, what are the first three reforms you would implement?
The first three, I believe this was almost similar question we were asked. Like we do a lot of meetings because we work with the state government's education department particularly. So in Rajasthan, one of the former chief secretaries had put the same question, slightly different manner. If you made the education secretary, so chief
Mhm.
secretary for education in the state, what would be? At that time also, my answer, to a great extent, like from the top level, let's say from the prime minister's level, education for education's sake, that importance uh, of education and schooling of kids has to become a top priority for families particularly, and that can come with political will. For example, we've made sanitation, so toilets in every house, individual connections, whether that is gas or water or this thing at every house. So that has come from the top, like PM Modi himself last 12 15 years, he's been very very active in this, and those things have happened. Like there is open defecation free India in 10 12 years. What has been achieved could not be achieved for a lot many years before that, because it's come from the top. So that kind of focus, so we have eradicated a lot of diseases also. So वो वाला focus से अगर top leadership, their personal involvement to say that no, every parent must know what their kids are doing, how many marks did they score, what is, because it's not just for the government job or for a job's sake that you're getting educated. Education is important for its own sake. First would be that raising the profile of education. Why go to school? So it's not for the midday meal. So what right now is happening is, yes, we are easing things for them, we are providing uniforms, so those who cannot afford, we are helping them, but we are not making them understand why we are helping them. And that would be at the top level, political level. If that is done, I believe a lot of change can come. There have been efforts, of course, Prime Minister himself, like Beti Bachao Beti Padhao, there is a lot of support. But individual parent level, जैसा हम disease eradication के लिए किया है, कई पोलियो के लिए, उसके लिए, जैसा कोविड के दौरान we supported those COVID warriors from his own mouth every single time in a focused manner. Maybe that would help. That's one thing I believe. Second, there have been a lot of studies which say that the, the people themselves know how best to spend their money. So the education sector itself has to be edited and modified in a sense that affordable private school students do much better than government school systems. So although their students are paying a fees, but the teachers are paid much less than
Yeah.
what teachers in government school systems are paid. Which means if the government can set up affordable private schools where you give kids vouchers, families vouchers to spend, which can be only spent in a school, that's a voucher, that's not cash money.
Mhm.
Maybe that helps because they know which school to go to. And
Correct.
then at the school or policy level, maybe things like every Monday, the Education Times is full of ranking of schools in one particular area, one particular city across the country, which are the best CBSE or state board or English medium or residential schools, and so on and so forth. But there's no comparative study for government schools, like which school is better. So if I am in a village, let's say 5 kilometers, I have another Gram Panchayat. On the east, I have another Gram Panchayat. All three are same subjects. So which one should I send my kid to? 5 kilometers, they can go. They can go by bus. There is a daily bus service. They can go by cycle. Not very tough nowadays, and decent roads everywhere. So is my village school the only option, or if he goes to X school, maybe the opportunities are better? There is no such internal competition or ranking, and that at village level, school level, block level, state and national level, that would help kids phenomenally. And last,
Mhm.
one more thing: most schools, at least in Rajasthan, across states that would be the case, they do not offer the full option of subjects that is available to private school students. And even the medium is restricted. So it's broadly in the northern states, it is Hindi, which is the medium of
Is it because
instruction.
there's very less student teacher ratio, or maybe there's less teachers who can teach a particular subject to a student? So let's say if the teacher is not very versed in language subjects like English, or could be let's say science, or particularly physics in such cases. So that can be one of the reasons why they are not able to provide all the subjects that you are talking about to the students.
30 years back, maybe. But right now, there are so many PhD in physics who are looking for jobs. I
Mhm.
mean, right now, getting that expertise is not a challenge. We are opening only schools which have arts as an option for grade 11 and 12. In Rajasthan, there's a particular oddity. They have only with science. So 1 in 10 schools broadly has science option. And those 1 in 10 schools also has science with bio. So there's no science with maths. So if
Mm.
there is no science with math option itself, that means bio, the only option left for you is medical. And that we know how traumatically difficult it is to get through, even for some of the best kids who are studying in the costliest and most rigorous coaching institutes across the country. जब उनको difficult है, उनमें 100 में से 1000 में से एक निकल रहा है, तो आम आदमी, they know that there's no option, so they kind of drop out. And because of socio-economic backgrounds, because of a lot of taboos in the village, when we, like, for bio, we had this very sad experience. we brought teachers also from Hindi medium schools to teach at before the edtech content was provided. Before 2020, we used to bring teachers also to teach in rural and government schools. So the principals used to openly say that, oh, the chapters which cover the human body and that kind of things, we do not cover in bio. I mean, you're not, because of social taboos, you're not even covering the entire subject. Then what exactly are you expecting the kids to? So that's the level of instruction or the challenge that has to be overcome on the ground. So options right now is not a challenge. Like the government has, Rajasthan government introduced English medium schools in 2019 on Gandhiji's 150th birth anniversary celebrations, and they were phenomenal success. Like lot of kids from rural and urban India opted for that, and they are studying. They're doing decently well. They are model schools nowadays. So given a chance, they this can be done now. Maybe 30 years back, we did not have that many graduates, that many higher education experienced and qualified candidates. But it's now not a supply demand challenge. We have n number of educated youth, and people would do anything for a government job.
Yeah.
Another example, they recently, a few years back, they hired computer teachers. A lot of BTech students I know applied for that position in government schools.
Mhm.
So computer engineers are computer teachers in government schools. Sadly, those schools do not have computers to teach. But so it's not a question of the right talent in the government school system. New talent to be hired. What is existing? That's another challenge. That's another debate or discussion. But you have phenomenal number of kids studying every possible course. So if you want to give the option, and there is no commerce, this I forgot to mention, government schools rarely have commerce as an option, which means that door is entirely closed for government schools. So then that's not exactly a good scenario. We are not even talking about individual subjects, for example, computers or agriculture, like those options. We are not not even talking. We're not going there. So
So talent, resources, and opportunities. Okay.
that's yeah.
So there are a lot of new young people who wanted to enter into this education domain. Could be doing let's say MA education, or they had done development studies, and are interested in coming into the education background. Any suggestion for them, whoever is starting or is going to start their professional career working in education?
Visit government schools, a lot of concepts will be cleared. Go to remote areas, particularly outside the biggest metro cities, outside the capital cities of states. And like within the government school system, in a tier 2 or 3 town, you are in the city. There's a different level of schooling, the teachers, because everybody prefers cities as their base. So most of the teachers, there'll be teachers available. The ratio also, like you mentioned, would be decent. You cross 15 kilometers, you go outside, and it's an entirely different world. Even senior grade students, 2026, not every school will have chairs and tables. Also basic infrastructure also will be missing, not everywhere, but at places it will be missing. They don't have 24-hour electricity. There's a lot of challenges. Drinking water is a problem. Space is definitely a problem. The buildings are old and dilapidated. There's a lot of challenges. So anybody who wants to set up or start a career in that, go and meet them, understand challenges from the side of the system and the teachers, particularly at the schooling school level in the schooling system. Even more important, try to understand, see things from the children's perspective. If the family is struggling to feed the kids, and the kids are accompanying their parents to do daily wage work, education for them is not exactly a priority. And us believing that yes, maybe edtech will help them, maybe a better method of teaching will help them, is kind of half baked. So anybody who wants to go into the sector, the first thing I would suggest is just take out time, go talk to them, volunteer your time, skills, effort, sit with them, try to understand, spend at least 2 weeks, if not more, if not months, spend 2 weeks and try to understand. I'll give you a much better idea of what will work, what will not work, what we are thinking, and what is actually there on the ground. That would be my first suggestion.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much, Vikram, for sharing not only your journey but also your vision for making education more meaningful, inclusive, and future ready. Is there anything which we missed and you wanted to add on and in the last?
Uh, Let me see. Initially, I had told you about why education and how I started this journey. Another thing that I believe, I had a lot of opportunity to visit Asian countries for development projects when I was working. And one of the countries I visited often was China. And China in the early 2000s was growing at a phenomenal pace, and it was seen as a rival to, it still is, as to United States, and it had already probably become the second largest economy, and it was phenomenal. And at that time, if you till then, the T3 terminal was not yet ready in Delhi. So IGI airport was, we still used to go to the earlier terminal. It was pretty small, the international terminal also. A lot of foreigners, when I was working in Singapore, they used to comment, oh, how come India cannot do this if China can do it? China, not just Beijing and Shanghai, even the smaller Guangzhou, not Nanning and Nanjing and Kunming, and they had phenomenal huge airports and massive terminals and highways and everything. So their infra and all was. But one thing I observed was all taxis, when you used to travel in taxis, even in tourist towns like Macau, they
Mhm.
had these grills like jail. So I thought, I asked them, are these like the drivers, are they coming from antisocial kind of background? How come they keeping grill? Is it safety for the passenger? Well, no, no, not the safety for the passenger. It's for the safety of the driver. I was shocked. I said, yeah, it's your country, your city, your own taxi you're sitting inside. How come? What safety do you need? You're just sitting inside your own car. How do you? And no, 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 people say, they put a knife and they say, okay, give me money. I said, local people. They said local people. I was shocked. I said, yeah, come, once in a while, one driver, you can understand. Yes, maybe somebody had a bad experience, but that's ubiquitous. And a lot of our own team members and friends and my profs, when they used to come to India from Singapore, particularly Chinese origin, a lot of them were from China originally. So then one of them, very astute, very socially, used to understand a lot of things and comment on these things. He said the difference between China and India is China, the only god is money. And in India, you still have a lot of spirituality left. So he used to stay in the Imperial Hotel in Delhi. So Imperial, you're staying inside, and outside there are beggars on the street, even in Connaught Place, of course. And at least at that time, they used to have 15, 20 years. Now, I don't know, I haven't checked recently. So he used to say, this guy is doing his work and we are doing our work, and he's least bothered, and he's not angry at us.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, in other countries, particularly China, they said, you have money, I don't have money. You are an enemy. I see you as an enemy. That's all. I don't care how you have it. I will try to grab that, whatever way. So, and when I mentioned like festivals like Holi and all slowly being banned in our village also, I realized I could connect the two things and realized that sadly, but slowly, we are also moving towards that direction. And the demographic dividend that we hope to reap, if we do not have wholesome holistic education, of course curricular and 21st century and skilling and job oriented, but a lot of it for rational understanding and peace of mind, and opening your mind, basically broadening your horizon. If we do not have that, we too will be facing an even more severe challenge, given our population, the number of young people that are there in India, like this boom that is happening, and it may turn into a disaster. So right now we have gated colonies. Slowly over time, maybe God forbid we don't end up there. But that was one of the reasons why we started, and it gels well with the idea of having volunteerism
Mhm.
amongst youth, young adults, so that they also become part of the community and they get out of some of the self-centered loneliness and depression that is taking root across the world, but particularly in India, because everybody is on a screen, and basically on a screen you are just alone, you are yourself, and you cannot even connect to your parents or teachers, and mostly without siblings, so no true friends in a sense. So these are all challenges which are coming together at one time. And to overcome that, we believe one is good quality education, wholesome education at school level, and the other is connecting with others outside your immediate circle, outside your blood relations, as volunteers. These will be combined solutions to this problem that, God forbid, I hope we do not face, but it seems inexorably, because places, day in and day out, newspapers are filled of Western Rajasthan was one of the most peaceful parts of the country. Even today, you can go from one place to another. I remember as a kid, we used to give lifts to anybody. आप कार में जा रहे हो किसी को भी. Even in Delhi, when we were students, मिड 90s, हम किसी से भी लिफ्ट ले लेते थे, गर्ल्स, यंग पीपल. आज की तारीख में ना हम देंगे, ना हम किसी से बच्चों को एडवाइस करेंगे कि आप किसी भी कार में, बस में, ट्रक में, किसी में भी आप लिफ्ट ले लीजिए क्लोज्ड व्हीकल में. वी वुड जनरली एडवाइस अगेंस्ट दैट. सो टाइम्स हैव चेंज्ड एंड सैडली दे हैव चेंज्ड नॉट फॉर द बेटर. सो how to reverse that degeneration and maybe come back towards having that trust feeling in strangers, also actually being good ourselves and doing good for the world. So this is important. It all comes from education. That's what is the value system, and India had it, and God willing we'll have it again. That's what would make truly Viksit Bharat is what we believe. That's what we are working towards.
On that note, I would like to end our conversation. So, thank you so much again, sir, for going to a very great extent talking about very small things, the challenges the government school faces, the student faces in this time, and also the work that your organization, Indeed Foundation, is doing for more than a decade. And whoever is listening to it is going to benefit from the podcast. So, thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Preetham. Thank you, Team Development Wala. It was wonderful, enlightening to talk to you, and best wishes to you and the podcast, of course.